Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Energy RX. Today, we are deep diving into the quantum nature of reality, ancient wisdom, and the healing intelligence of the universe. Joining us for this extraordinary discussion are two returning guests that are two brilliant minds who are shaping the way we understand the world beyond the physical. We have Dr. Johan Calleman, a renowned scientist, author, Mayan calendar expert, whose part of his work deciphers the hidden patterns of time and consciousness. We also have Dr. Catherine Clinton, a licensed naturopathic physician, researcher, and amazing quantum health expert. She's dedicated to bridging modern science with the ancient wisdom of nature to heal both the body and the spirit. Together, we'll explore how the quantum field connects to all of us, the power of ancient timelines, and the energetic forces shaping our health and reality. So sit back, open your mind, and get ready for a journey into the unseen fabric of existence. Welcome back, Dr. Calleman and Dr. Clinton.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, what we are attempting to do today is to weave together both of their brilliant work. And I follow both of them. I'm huge fans. And I thought this will be fun to see what can come out of this conversation of Dr. Clinton's work with quantum biology. I also just want to say for a moment, Dr. Clinton, you have started something new that I didn't introduce. I feel like there is an institute or something that you're part of now. Am I right with that?
Yes. In 2024, we launched the Quantum Biology Health Institute. And so we are researching and educating on the effects of quantum biology on human health. So it's exciting.
Okay, that is wonderful. So, Dr. Calleman has a little bit of a presentation that he has put together. So, we're going to let him start. And you want to go ahead and share your screen and share with us your information?
Yes, I will. But I guess I should, just start with a couple of words about quantum theory in general.
Okay.
Basically, in the history of science, it has played an enormously important role because from about 1600 to about 1900, the world was dominated by Newtonian physics. And what that meant was that it was a study of solid objects, essentially. And Newton's laws became the highest expression of that kind of philosophy, where you used the mass of objects to predict their trajectories and so forth. But then in 1900, a German physicist by the name of Max Planck introduced something that's come to be known as quantum theory. And it's not anymore about that kind of solid bodies, solid objects that they was. Instead, you could say that he developed an equation, Planck's equation, where the energy of some particle is proportional to the frequency of that particle. And it really took away this solidity, and everything became sort of waves, and forming a sort of an underlying field of waves. And that's what it has become discussed as the quantum reality, as in many different aspects of that we also may be touching upon here today. And quantum phenomena then have become, especially in the past 20 years, has come out more broadly among people, and people are interested in this phenomenon. And there are some mysterious aspects of it, for instance, entanglement over enormous different distances and so forth, that makes it reasonable to say that everything in the universe is connected. And I think that's really very much part also of Catherine's work, and to see these, demonstrate these connections, because that's they have a lot of health implications that are normally not taken into account in medicine, where you mostly you just look upon the human being and its organs as an isolated phenomenon. But I think that approach of hers to make such connections based on quantum theory is very fruitful, and connects to several ancient systems of healing from China or from Guatemala or from many other places. That said about quantum theory, I should present my own version of it, which is a little bit different from the established version. In other words, if you go to Wikipedia, you will find that it says that quantum theory or quantum physics only applies on the subatomic level. And that sort of, I guess it goes against to some extent what Catherine is saying, that everything is connected through these things, even on a larger scale, on a biological scale. But it also certainly goes along with what I'm working with, which is to develop a quantum theory that applies to the macrocosmos, to the entire evolution of the universe, including the evolution of consciousness. That is of sort of a primary importance in understanding what life is all about, or what is the purpose of this creation, and so forth. And I want, since I've been given the honor to start here, I will make a presentation here, and oops, will I? What happened here?
Okay. So let's see. So Carl, we're having a very multi-dimensional view of your screen.
Yeah, it's very appropriate. It's very appropriate. Entire screen,
Yes.
share. No, why are we getting?
Yes.
Well, this is it's a demonstration of
So,
how
Carl,
the microcosmos is part of the macrocosmos, right?
Carl, I'm going to have to say, I think you should,
Okay.
we can't hear you. I'm going to say you should probably stop screen sharing.
Okay.
It's not, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to work now.
Yep.
Okay.
Not working. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I guess I would like to pass the baton over to Catherine immediately here, and then I can come back after my introduction.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Thank you, Carl. I'm sorry that the screen sharing didn't. I know you had a great presentation, but maybe you can tell us some of the aspects later after Catherine speaks a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And I agree that that is the trajectory, right? That we went from this Newtonian physics model into the idea of quantum theory that goes more to the subatomic. And from my perspective, those very small changes that quantum theory is addressing at the subatomic level lead to changes at the macro level. There's sort of that initiator, that trigger that brings about change in matter. So we see that in all kinds of things. In the early quantum biological experiments, they were looking at how a photon gets to a photoreactive center in bacteria and seeing that just one photon of light can superimpose and take multiple routes. It can create a quantum coherence. And that's what really kind of got me interested, is like the entire being, that entire bacteria creates this quantum coherence working together to keep that photon on its fastest path. And that implies a few different things. Not only is there this switch from Newtonian to quantum theory, but there's a knowing there that this coherence and collective action within that organic system, within that living system, knows what the fastest path is, and keeps that photon on the fastest path to get to the photon reactive center, for photosynthesis to occur. And we see this in mitochondria, we see this in enzymes, we see this in our reaction with light, our reaction with sound. We see that with the incredible structure of water. And so I think this is going to be a really exciting conversation, because I really respect what Carl's doing, and have read, or actually I have listened to his book several times. And this blueprint of time through a quantum theory is absolutely fascinating. And it brings about what I talk about a lot in quantum biology, is how we are receivers, how this liquid crystal structure in our body, whether we're talking about our cell membranes or our microtubules in the brain or our DNA or our fascia, this collagen network, and the water, that water that takes on a different structure when it meets those cell membranes and tissues, really acts as an antenna. And I think that fits so perfectly with what you're saying, Carl, about how, consciousness really requires the human brain to be there, right? It's like a radio signal without a radio. We need both.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is wonderful.
Yeah.
Carl, I would love to know a little bit more about, you were talking about how some of Catherine's work, how even, this fits in with ancient healing methods. I was interested to hear you say that about some of the ancient techniques. Were you talking about like Chinese medicine, like acupuncture and those things, or something more than that?
No, I think Chinese medicine is a good example of that. And there is a big difference essentially between what we call Western and Eastern medicine, in the sense that Western medicine for the past 250 years or so has been what's called organotropic medicine. In other words, it's based on the philosophy that if you have some problem in your eye, you should heal the eye. If you have a problem in your kidney, you should heal the kidney. And the Chinese medicine is quite different, as well as Indian Ayurvedic medicine. It's system-based, and it's based on these meridians and so forth. And so if you have a problem in your eye, you shouldn't necessarily try to heal the eye directly. You should work with the system. And which then implies that there are connections of probably what you would call the quantum nature all over the body. And so they, if you have a problem in your eye and you go into India or so, they might start to work on your feet, because they know that will have it could have a healing effect on the system as such. Well, it's a very important distinction, I think, between the two different ways of working. Now, of course, we shouldn't just sort of throw out Western medicine. If you have broken a leg, you should work with the leg. You should heal the leg, so to speak. But there are many aspects of especially when it comes to preventing chronic diseases of different kinds, where a much more system-oriented method is preferable. And I've been reading a book recently that compares Mayan medicine with Chinese medicine. And it's an interesting thing that actually the philosophy underlying the ancient Mayan, and I'm sure that would be one of the most advanced of the Native American healing methods, but that it's most closely related to the philosophy of Chinese medicine rather than modern medicine. And I think there is a process going on, shifting the focus of healing away from the organotropic medicine to a more system-oriented medicine, and a form that medicine could take could be exactly what Catherine is working with, which is quantum biology. It would be a more modern version compared to these. It depends on language also, of course. Modern people may find sometimes be uncomfortable with hearing about yin and yang and such and spiritual terminologies, so to speak. And the quantum is really about the same thing in a certain sense, that it is these invisible connections between different parts of our body, and that's what makes the difference.
Yeah, no, I wonder if we're reading the same book. It's just a fascinating book. I read one that is similar that compares the two, and it makes me actually think of your work, Carl, with the waves and the different waves that go through society and everything here, and create sort of these different upgrades, if you will. And that idea of energetic flow in the body was something that you see in ancient Asian medicine, like Chinese medicine, Japanese medicine. You see that in Ayurvedic medicine with the nadis. You see that in ancient Egyptian medicine. You see that in the Americas, in Mayan medicine. You see that in the Inuit population, all the way up in North America. Same idea, the flow of energy through meridians or through channels, and that illness comes from a blockage in these flows. And so quantum biology looks at that. Is that electric? I think we can make a very good case for the electric body and the body as an electric being. I think we can make a good case for it being other things that we don't quite know of yet, right? These different frequencies, not just electric or electromagnetic frequency, but other more subtle frequencies, the biofield, some of these less researched and less understood. I'm not sure we'll ever understand them, or if we're supposed to. It might just be a practice in awe of how incredible this world is. But it does remind me of that intersection with your work, because you see that even though these cultures that we know of, didn't have communication in very vast distances from each other, are cultivating similar ideas of what it means to be human, what it means to heal.
Yeah.
It makes
And it's not just the fact that the human body is connected with a system of energy, so to speak. It's also that many of these ancient medicine traditions, they would typically, the healer would ask questions about lifestyle and so forth to anybody coming to be healed, because of the recognition that we're also part of a whole universe, a living universe, and that if that could be blocked, our connection to, there are many modern diseases that have appeared in recent times that we never heard of before, which may have as their origin the fact that people are maybe overall have been increasingly distanced from the cosmos, from their spiritual connections, and so forth. That is to expand the whole process. And yes, in a sense, that is what my work is about. It's looking at the evolution of consciousness as a function of macrocosmic quantum waves. And where the best way of using a metaphor for that evolutionary process is to look upon a pyramid from the Maya, especially, that's built in 9 levels. And in ancient times, those were ceremonial pyramids, and the shamans that would be leading these ceremonies, they would climb the pyramid. But climbing the pyramid in those days were actually a kind of a way of symbolically enacting the entire evolution of the universe. In other words, every step of these terrace pyramids represented a level of life or a level of consciousness, which are intertwined and always connected, so to speak. You can't have consciousness without life, and you can't have life without any kind of consciousness. But then it's a climb of 9 levels, and that's what that is outlines a directions for humanity and for ourselves. And each of these levels of consciousness is brought to us by waves, but it's not the micro waves, not the subatomic waves, but waves that in ancient times were talked about as cosmic serpents, or if you go specifically to the region called Mesoamerica, it was talked about as the feathered or the plumed serpent. And the plumed serpent was considered as a bringer of life, and a bringer of consciousness, bringer of civilization, essentially a bringer of everything that human beings would create in their lives. But these are different levels, and it's a whole process for life to go through, and including humans to go through, and in order to come to that top level, which is really a kind of reconnection with a state of unity consciousness, where there is no polarity, there is no duality in our minds, and instead it's a return to a cosmic awareness of unity. And I don't know where I got all that from now, but anyway, I think it's a good thing time to in here. Yeah.
I hope that's where we're headed, that it certainly seems that we're living in a space of sort of extreme duality in the current climate, but maybe this is pushing us towards this greater sense of unity. So I have a question for you, Carl. And we talk about how these and Catherine as well, we're talking about these ancient cultures who all had very similar understandings of flow of energy through your body being important for healing and waves of consciousness. And so it makes me think that there may be some sort of cosmic consciousness that humans have the ability to connect into. You get information that may be sort of universal information that we all have the ability to. I mean, people now will use the words download. Maybe that's one word you would use. What are your thoughts about, that we could all be entangled in this web of information?
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, I think that's exactly what is the case. For a number of reasons, when humanity has climbed this pyramid, new steps of consciousness has been added. And part of the aspect of that is that it's like we've been more and more isolated in our state of consciousness. And the result is that modern people, compared to ancient people, do not immediately have that cosmic connection of being able to receive information or visions or whatever you want to call it. Download is a good word. But it's a modern word from the techno world, so to speak. And but I think the way forward must in also be about returning to that cosmic resonance and really make it aware. We some of us, and I would think all of us here, have some ability to download information from the cosmos, but others live in their very individual lives, and that is, everybody for themselves is not really a good recipe for the survival of our species. So, we have to make various ways of inroads into returning to the kind of connections with the cosmic source that the ancient peoples had.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Catherine, I'd love to hear your take on this idea of entanglement and quantum consciousness. What your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I agree with what Carl was talking about. I think that when we look at our modern day lives, they do a wonderful job of keeping us disconnected, of keeping us busy, prioritizing productivity. And when we look at, kind of that split that happened with Newtonian science and the scientific revolution, it was we can now have these really incredible microscopes and we see a world that we've never seen before. And now this is the scientific gold standard. What I see under a microscope and you see under a microscope and you see under a microscope, that is a scientific truth. And everything else was cast away. And these old traditions of becoming connected with a universal consciousness, with a universal intelligence, was something that hasn't been prioritized for centuries. And this idea that everything must be an objective truth and our subjective knowing, our own relationship with that energy outside of us and inside of us, right? This flow of energy is really that return, and silence is part of that. And that's something that we often don't have in our daily lives, that space to get still, to get silent, and to connect with that energy. But I think I agree. I think that in the last couple decades, people are starting to recognize that what we're seeing with our modern epidemics of disease is just not controllable by a pharmaceutical method that we have right now. And that returning to these relationships is really what is going to produce health. I mean, I say this all the time when I'm teaching practitioners about quantum biological ways to improve health. It's a list, right? Okay, this is how I ground, or this is how I connect with the sun, or this is how I connect with nature. But really, it's an invitation to return to these relationships. And so what comes out as a quantum biology prescription list really turns into these incredible relationships, because we've done a wonderful job of disconnecting with and walking away from all of those relationships we had. And you see that in almost every ancient indigenous culture that I've studied. They had reverence and ritual for their relationship with the sun, the moon, the stars, the ground beneath their feet, the water in their environment. All of these things were sacred. The energy, the universe, they understood themselves as part of this universal fabric. And I think that we are missing that and deeply, desperately craving that return. It makes me hopeful.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Yeah, I just want to comment on this with the productivity and so forth. The modern world is based on the idea that things should be effectively produced and consumed, you might say. But who says that that is the purpose of life? Who says that? I mean, it doesn't even seem to be something that any satisfies many people, and yet it is sort of just keeps carrying on and keeps continuing in infinitum, and yeah.
Yeah, there's just one that really, there's one group of people that really profit from that narrative,
That-
right? And
right.
they can be loud sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So one thing in my work that I have found that's a really important and powerful piece, and I think this has to do with this aspect of quantum communication, is setting an intention for what you want to do with healing work, and how the idea of intention is part of quantum consciousness. Do either of you have thoughts on this idea of quantum consciousness and how our intention is important?
Well, I just want to say that intention, whether it's quantum or not, I think it's the key to almost everything. Without intention, you hardly achieve anything. You hardly move forward with anything. And I would think that the intention to heal, also on the person that is deceased, will the crucial factor. If that's not there, there probably will not be any healing. And I would say the same thing when it comes to the climb of the cosmic pyramid in 9 levels and 9 states of consciousness. We will not automatically just sort of come back to that kind of a state of unity with the cosmos without having the intention to go there. And so I think the concept of intention is crucial for everything. Uh, but we can't count on the help of the cosmos if we don't have the intention to have a certain direction and move forward in that direction.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And it does feel like also I've noticed with intention that when you're aligned with someone, so that maybe as a healer, you're working with someone, when you're each holding the intention, that can sort of build and grow in a way for you to have the results for the shifting, the transformation to happen. And so it does feel like sort of in this quantum reality, the more of us that are committed to reconnecting with our cosmic nature, with each other, with unity consciousness, that the more people who have that intention to move into that state of being with that ninth wave that you speak of, Carl, that the energy can build. Would you agree with that?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Um, we are getting close to our stop time. Is there anything else that either would like to add about the quantum nature of reality or consciousness? Anything you want to throw in before we wrap up here?
I think that was a beautiful question about intention, because if you envision this field, this energy, people call it the 0 point field or the Akashic field or this universal field holding everything, this field of potential that holds everything. Intention is really that map, that call out to that field that lets it know, okay, this is what this particular being is really aligning with, right? And I agree with both of you about the power of intention. And from a quantum biological perspective, that energy that we have these structures within us that are aligned, just like the crystals in our screens, right? The molecules are aligned in a certain way. And when a field of energy comes in, they act as a cohesive collective. And when you're speaking about intention, it aligns those structures in a certain way. And we can think about how it aligns us with that intention that's being held in the field. So I think that what both of you are saying is spot on and so incredibly important when we're talking about unifying together as humanity to call in this intention of unity and collective consciousness and that ninth wave.
Beautifully said. Really beautifully said. Yes, moving into this. Well, thank you both so much for being here and having this quantum conversation to help break it down a little bit more. It's a really complex idea, I think, for most people to wrap their brains around. And so hopefully this helps. And we are looking forward to seeing you next time. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you both. You too. Thank you. Very nice.
Okay.
Yes, thank you both so much. We'll have to do a part 2.
I would love to do a part 2. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.